All right, looks like we're live here. I'm going to wait a little bit for people to come on. Let me get this live stream tweeted out here too, if I can. There it goes. And grab the link and I'll put it across here. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. We're going to talk about whatever you want. We'll go over what's coming here after the big ridge leaves us. Okay, I hope this is working here. Somebody chime in if this is live. I can't tell if it is yet. I'm using a different... Oh, I gotta sign in here, don't I? That's probably why. There it goes, live stream, and here we go. Okay. Now I should be up and running here. Looks like I'm live. Wait for a few people to get in here before we start chatting. Hopefully this is showing up for you guys. Okay, yep, it's on there. All right. Must be some kind of delay on this feed I'm getting here. But I'll just use the actual YouTube page here. All right, I see you guys chatting here now. It lets me chat, but I can't see your chat there, so I'm gonna have to leave this open. Hi, everybody. Z asks, are we getting more snow in Oregon? Well, if we do, it's not going to be for at least another, what, 10 days probably. But there's some signals showing up in the extended. You guys probably been seeing on my Twitter feed there. Hi, Debbie Nelson, member Debbie Nelson. Snow for Seattle. Yeah, I mean we're looking at the possibility coming up here in the extended. I mean anything over 10 days is the extended, but we've got kind of a signal for it. And we'll be looking at some things here. You guys can see this big ridge. I mean, check this out. You guys, if we zoom in here, you can actually see like the lower level fog streaming out over the ocean there. It's pretty cool. If we can get this to play. There it goes. Oh, it's loading. Jose Villas, greetings from Everett, Washington. How's it going? Yeah, we're going to look at some of the patterns here, and we'll check out some of the fail modes too. We don't want to go full height mode without looking at fail modes this far out. There's definitely fail modes with this. But, you know, the extended, some of the oscillations are pointing towards, you know, the return to active weather here in the next 10 days. Will it include Arctic air and snow? That's hard to say right now. Some of the runs have been showing that. And we'll look at that in a little bit of detail here. Greetings from Monroe. Yeah, it should be, I mean, it's not going to be any rain for the Pacific Northwest for about the next at least 7 days, I would say. There might be a system on the 28th, 29th, or the 30th. But yeah, great walking weather. If you guys like, you know, if you guys like the dry, here it is. I mean, we're going to have a nice stretch of dry, and there should be some sunbreak for some areas too. Some of the Willamette Valley, even Puget Sound will get some sunbreaks at some point. The coastal regions look pretty good. I mean, there was some sunshine out there today. The mountains look excellent. You guys get above the inversion, a couple thousand feet up, and you're going to be bathing in sunshine in the mountains too. Looks like eastern Washington and Oregon are pretty clear tonight too. Some high clouds, but that's about it. Yeah, the air stagnation alert. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. It's going to be light winds. I'm hoping they're maybe a little bit stronger than forecast. They've got an offshore component. Maybe it'll clear it out a little bit more than what they're saying. But I've heard about it. Let's look at it here. I haven't actually checked the air stagnation forecast. I've just heard it was out. And what do we got here? Air stagnation advisory. Well, this is for Oregon now, but this might be extended into up into us. Was there one for the? I thought there was one for the Pacific Northwest too. I'm wondering why it's not showing it here. Andy Flyer, thanks for the support. Maya and VFR in Seattle tomorrow at some point. Depends on where you are in Seattle. There's probably going to be some fog around it. It's probably going to burn off in the afternoon for some places. Andy Flyer, thank you very much. So as we look, why is this not coming up? I thought there was one. Maybe here, let's check. Let's do National Weather Service Seattle. Let's try that. I could have swore I saw some kind of stagnation advisory out. Do you guys see that too? I see it for Oregon there, but I don't see it for Seattle right now. So Weather Channel has the alert for Washington. It's an outlook. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it makes sense that that's going to be showing up. I mean, we're going to be pretty light winds. Check this out. So this is what's coming up here. This is tonight. I mean, you can see Seattle 3-4 miles per hour. You can see the offshore flow here, kind of an anticyclone here off the coast. And just no big winds, much of the Pacific Northwest. The only wind at all is off the coastline, really, and right on the immediate coast, some strong offshore flow. But look at the interior, like 2 miles an hour for Seattle, 1 mile an hour, 2 miles an hour for Portland. It might get kind of nasty. We'll see how much we burn off some of these days. Nietzsche 499. Yeah, all right. Thank you. Thanks for the local forecast from Kirkland. All right. And check this out as we go into Monday here. I mean, just look at this, just lack of wind. We haven't had a windstorm in a while here. That's pretty amazing. I mean, look at just the entire Pacific Northwest. We are just under this huge ridge. And here's looking at the visibility values. Check out some of this fog building in tomorrow morning, Puget Sound, Willamette Valley. But notice up in the mountains, if you guys want to take a hike tomorrow and Sunday are the day, I mean, it'll be really nice once you get up out of the valleys. Notice how this is in the lowlands for eastern Washington here. It had a lot of Idaho, some of the valleys surrounded by the higher terrain. But if you get up in the mountains, it is going to be gorgeous tomorrow. Yeah, Jeffrey Sturgeon talking about the air stagnation outlook from Sunday until 4 p.m. Wednesday. Wow, wow. So that is from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's 4 days. Wow, that's impressive. January ridges. I mean, we do get ridges, but in January they're usually not so persistent. They're more transient. A ridge will build between like weather systems. Usually we'll get a low pressure swing through and then a ridge will build up for a day or a half a day. And then the next system's moving in, but this one is pretty steadfast. Let's go ahead and look at the heights here. This is a good indicator of the upper level ridge strength. Look at that thing. I mean, it's just, it's not that far off of that huge heat dome we had during the summer. And then you'll see as it weakens there and it kind of comes back over us a bit there into next week. And then some systems start to try to break down, and really not until, the 30th or 31st before that next system gets in here. It's just pretty incredible. Yeah, Debbie Nelson. Yeah, this Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, BC they're gems. They are North America gems. We live in a great place here. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while we'll get a ridge in winter, but this is a particularly strong one. So it's going to be interesting to see just how foggy we're going to get. And hopefully air stagnation doesn't become too big of a problem. So let's look at what's coming here too. So the European has been kind of waffling around a little bit. If we look into the extended, and we're going into early February here now, and you'll notice the kind of polar lobe out here. And we've got the ridging, we need that, but this ridge is a little bit far east here. So it's kind of tough to get this lobe out over us. So it kind of squeezes it underneath the ridge here. And this is more of a dry, cold air intrusion here. It wouldn't be a big snowmaker for the Pacific Northwest. The reason why I'm not too worried about any of those signals yet is because as this thing moves offshore and over our region, it's not, this ridge could very easily be a little bit further west here. And if it is, this whole thing is going to be off. And it's been flip-flopping around a bit here too. If we look at that versus, let's compare that versus the one a few runs ago here. We're 12Z versus 0Z last night. Look at the difference between these here. You notice the ridge is much further north and west last night, and then the big flip to today. So this is really, I think the European and the GFS are still figuring things out, and we're still far enough out where this is going to change quite a bit back and forth probably. And then you can see at the very end of the run this morning, there's another lobe. Looks like it might be forming here and taking a better trajectory as this ridge seems to start to retrograde a bit more west. And the GFS shows something similar. Actually, let's just go right to the high of the 500 millibar. So here's the ridge we're going through now. Very strong ridge. Weakens a bit into next week, but it still gets going pretty good there again Thursday. And then finally we get a system, looks like on the 29th, just, a weak system. Big ridging over Alaska here. And then you'll notice, now here we go. Here's February 1st. Notice the ridging here, and here's the north flow. This is what we call that negative Pacific North American oscillation. And you can see the kind of the polar lobe move around underneath the ridge, and it throws a nice chunk of cold air over us. This is also kind of that same trajectory as the European model is showing. So there's something to it, but I think that they're figuring out where this ridge is going to set up. So this is going to flip-flop again. This is going to change again, and it'll probably change again next run if I had to bet. And then you can see that next portion of that lobe moving down in the extent of the GFS. So this ridge is further west at this point. So there's probably going to be another one after that also. So there's probably going to be a couple chances at cold air on into early February for the Pacific Northwest. Scrub J, how's it going? Thanks for supporting the channel. Does this ridge contribute to the potential of the winds you posted earlier? 100 plus seems weird. Those winds I was showing yesterday were aloft. So that I think I was showing the 18,000 foot winds. And so that's up towards the jet stream a little bit more. Not the jet stream, but it's a portion of higher winds up there, 18,000 feet. So that's why it's, up above 100 miles per hour. Aaron Green asks, does your job require looking at low-res, long-range models or more localized high-res models? Well, mostly short-range, high-resolution models is what I look at. We use the HER, for example. We're not supposed to be basing safety of flight on it, but it's just kind of a guidance. It gives us an idea of timing of thunderstorms or frontal systems. We just kind of monitor it so we have a better general awareness of what's going on. But we have specific forecasts. Like Seattle will do specific aviation forecasts. They're called TAFs, Terminal Area Forecasts. And they put those out, and that gives us additional information for exact SeaTac region. And so then we're comparing that to satellite trends, lightning, thunderstorm development, frontal systems. We're watching all that all the time for entire North American continent. So yeah, part of working for an airline and doing a flight controller's job is, you're watching the current weather and you're watching it nonstop, and you get you get tools like real lightning readout real time. And so you can see lightning strikes as they're happening. You can zoom way in on an airport and you can see live aircraft moving across the runways and whatnot. And you can see where the lightning is. And so it's really safe. You can say, hey, you know, you still got lightning on the runway, or there's lightning approaching the field now, you know, you might want to hold, or you want to, you know, a lot of different things we look at while we are working. River's End. Yeah, I don't live far from SeaTac either. I'm just a few miles away. How important is the development of a southeast ridge? So you'd be talking about this, basically, the southeast ridge here. I mean, it kind of forms by default. Once you start getting the polar vortex throwing a lobe out here and you get troughing here, and you kind of get that ridging by default. When that trough sets up there, that ridging through the south and the southeast of the US kind of forms by default there. Do I ever get tired of weather forecasting? I mean, there's times where it gets overwhelming. Debbie Nelson asked, do you ever get tired of weather forecasting? It can be overwhelming when you're watching stuff every single run. And then it can kind of get, I don't really get tired of it, but I can get discouraged sometimes if you see like an Arctic outbreak coming and then you see it start to back off over a period of a few days, then it starts getting discouraging because, you know, I like seeing the active weather. But at the same time, you don't want disruption in the city you live in, or if you're flying somewhere, you know, you don't want delayed flights and all that stuff too. So there's good and bad with it. Yeah, I saw that public domain says nice hot pink sky at sunset. Yeah, it was a nice sunset tonight. I saw that out the window here. It was, you know, almost reminded me of springtime there. Yeah, if nothing else, the pattern will be changing up and at least that ridging will be going away. And as you can see in the GFS here, how far west that ridge is now at the end of its run. And that would be much more favorable there. This is the GFS ensemble. Let's back up all the way till now. You can see how this ridge is over us. This is why our weather is so going to be so tranquil for the next week or so. And look at this ridge just, you know, parks over top of us, stays offshore, and then that ridge is still pretty close here. But then about end of January, you can see it kind of takes residence further north and west and allows for some of this more cold air to get down over the region here. And you can see a couple lobes here on the polar. Sometimes I don't like calling it the polar vortex, but it's just a reflection of the upper polar vortex, and it lags in time, and it's not really the polar vortex, but I mean, I guess I could call it a polar lobe or an Arctic lobe. You know, this is just an 18,000 foot representation of some colder air aloft based on, you know, polar or Arctic air. But you can see the ridges out here. This is a prime setup for us to get Arctic air intrusion into the Pacific Northwest with that ridge far off to the northwest like that. Phyllis Berry, we are fogged in. Where do you, yeah, I think Phyllis is in British Columbia. Check the AO Atlantic Oscillation. Let's take a look. So CFS, I think I have it up right here. And this is 18Z. Yeah, you can see this. Look at this. Late January, we dive into negative territory there. And this is the signature of that ridge. This big dip between or underneath the negative line here on the Pacific North American Oscillation is a result of this ridging out here. That's kind of what it's highlighting, this big ridge that allows the Arctic air to get down over us. And let's look at here. North Atlantic Oscillation going positive at the same time there. East Pacific. But mostly I've just been paying attention to the Pacific North American Oscillation. Some of these don't have direct correlation with exact position of the ridging. So I'm just trying to I've been trying to study here recently the Pacific North American Oscillation and just try to see how it plays into our weather here in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, Newcastle Weather wants me to make a prediction. Yeah, we're still too far out, but I mean, it's not that far out. You know, it's less than a couple weeks away where this change is going to be coming, but At the same time, it's really hard to come up with specifics because, like I showed earlier, if we look at this, this is the European ensemble here. This was this morning's, and you can see the polar vortex spin down this lobe here this morning. And now if we go to, actually last night, sorry, this was last night's run. The polar vortex spins down this lobe here towards us. Then if we go to this morning's, you'll notice the vortex is much further out and tries to get us much more in an indirect way, an offshore, much more of an offshore trajectory that would bring us a dry Arctic air intrusion, and it would be briefer. This is going to change again. When the 00Z1 comes out, it's going to be different. It might hedge towards this even more, but I think over the next few days, this is going to waffle and change because these vortexes or these polar lobes are very fickle, and that might be the development of another one coming up the top there. What's the February 2020? So if you want to see that, we can go. Let's go ahead and check. Oh, we don't want to check Outlook. Local for, I'm drawing it. This is not where I usually look here, but I'm trying here. Here's 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, for example. Temperature probability. This is going into late January, February 4th. This is when our transition starts to come here. So you can see it's starting to get picked up on here. And precipitation too, you can see, you know, we get enough precipitation as it is. Normal precipitation with cold around is, you know, that can mean snow for us. So you don't need to be above normal precipitation here. The blob is back. I don't think the blob is back, but here, let's do. Here, let's do this. This is the easier way of doing it. So we'll go tropical tidbits. So this is sea surface temperature anomalies right here for today, January 21st. You can see we have the opposite of the blob. We have the cold blob offshore right now. And you can see the typical La Nina setup here. Water below average through off the coast of South America all the way towards the Central Pacific there. Scrub J says others are suggesting blob is back. I mean, there's a little tiny bit of warm air right along the coastline, but that doesn't really mean much. Ken Wynn says you have some great vids. I use them in my junior high classes. All right. Sounds good. East-based La Nina is responsible for the weather patterns with ridging in the west and troughing in the northeast. Well, I mean, it's just a pattern La Nina is going through, but yeah, La Nina is still going on. This is prime example of a current La Nina conditions going on, just like Vlad says. Yeah, I don't know if they were talking about that little bit off the Washington coast. I don't know what they meant, but maybe somebody looked at the blob out here over the North Central Pacific. I mean, that's pretty typical placement for above average warm water, though, during a La Nina episode. Oh yeah, so Von Will says yes, that video with the wind change from Tonga was so amazing. Yeah, that's on I have it on one of my videos about you never know for sure if that was because of the shock wave, but the gradient did relax as that shock wave came in for a brief period of time. And that could have been what helped, it might've cut the gradient off and made it help the fog clear briefly there. So you can never be 100% sure about that, but it was just looked like a very interesting phenomena. AMOC comments. Well, the 5G has been postponed, so everything is good. For example, where I work, and they did a really good job handling that. And we didn't have to. We had no delays. We had no problems with the 5G thing. I don't know if they're planning on doing that again in the summer or what's going to take place, but AMOC is an alternate method of compliance that for airlines, and it worked out really well. I mean, I didn't hear of any problems with 5G or anything. They might have postponed it fully until summer, which hopefully they, it's a smart move because winter tends to have more fog and whatnot. Yeah, that shockwave was amazing. I saw some reports that it circled the globe 3 different times. So some places picked up 6 separate wave signatures of that blast from that Tonga volcano. Will the ridge, so Rob asked, will the ridge in Alaska stay for at least a week or 2 of cold weather Pacific Northwest? It tends to do that. Yes, it tends to hang out for, between 7 and 14 days usually. And a lot of times our Arctic air blasts come in 2s. So you'll get, let's show the GFS here. Oh, that's the polar vortex. We'll do that next. This is an ensemble. That's a little bit too much. So here comes the first one on the GFS. You can see this lobe swing out over us here. And then another one at the very end. You see this one developing here. This one might slide down next. So we tend to get 1 or 2 of these. So we tend to be in that setup for at least 7 days usually. Especially a ridge, this is a very strong ridge. And this is going to drive some cold air down and perhaps some Arctic polar air. So that's why I'm kind of confident in the signal. I just don't know if this is going to be some kind of dry intrusion event, or if this is going to back up to the west a little bit more, and it's going to bring a further trajectory off the coastline, and it's going to spin up and have more cyclogenesis and keep Pacific Northwest a little bit warmer and maybe just mountain snow. It's hard to say for now. It needs to take a correct trajectory off the British Columbia coast back into Washington and Oregon to get lowland snow. So taking a look here, this is a pretty cool look at the very upper levels of the polar vortex here. You're looking at the North Pole here. You can see you've got Russia, you've got Europe over here, you've got North America, Alaska, you've got Japan over here, and you've got Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, Idaho here. And if we put this polar vortex, or a representation of one of the layers of the polar vortex into motion here, you can see it. It's over the North Pole pretty strong. You see it start to drift down over. Look at that. This is more of a classic pattern for Pacific Northwest cold air here. Kind of a polar vortex split going on there. This is way out in La La Land though, so it's just something fun to look at. And the 18Z was actually different too. It kept itself better contained. Actually, it's starting on the 0Z run already. Let's look at the 18. So if we go into the future here, it's contained itself for the North Pole pretty good. And then it starts to intrude down into the North America, but it stays a little bit further east here. So we'll see what the next run brings. You can see kind of the differences here, more of a split. And this one is a little bit further east over the Hudson Bay there. And let's take a look back over the 06Z run also and compare that. And you can see how these are changing. 06, 18Z, or 12Z was here, then 18Z further here. So, and it was showing more of a split the last 2, and now it doesn't. So this is still in flux. We're still looking far enough out to where, it's pretty chaotic. Any pattern is going to look pretty chaotic as we're looking at it now. Yeah, that's a theory that a lot of scientists support. Public domain says jet stream weakens as the Arctic warms. That is, yes, that would be a decrease in temperature gradient between the poles and the equator. If the Arctic is warming faster, you're gonna have warmer air there, and then you're gonna lessen that gradient. And some scientists think that will lead to more blocking. You have more of a meandering jet stream. And there's still a lot of debate on that though. Well, for instance the blob. I mean, this is a result of upwelling water here, or it can be just from the pattern. You get a cold air pattern, or the water is stirred up quite a bit, and the blob is more pushed. You've got more of an onshore flow, and it builds the water up here in the Northeast Pacific. And the water is stirred up less when there's warm water, or if you want to call it the blob. Let's see if we can is there a Northeast Pacific on here? I forget. Doesn't look like it. Aaron Green asks, how many times have you stayed up for a model run? Well, it depends on if I'm going storm chasing or not. If I'm going storm chasing, or if there's a big windstorm coming, I stay up every night for the European model. European model starts running about 9:46 p.m. and it finishes something like 10:40, somewhere about there. But you can watch it come in step by step. And so I'll stay up for the European model, and then I'll go to sleep if there's something fun coming. What's our snowpack future like? Well, I haven't done any direct studies myself on that. Cliff Mass says that the snowpack will decrease, especially going on later on into the century. Significant snowpack decrease. In fact, he talked about potential for some winters just having no skiing. There won't be any skiing at Snoqualmie Pass, for example. So stuff I worry about with that kind of thing is that you start to introduce more insects to the forest, and with less snow, you tend to have a drier forest, which might lead to more forest fires. So yeah, that's just kind of what I worry about when we talk about climate change. Volcanic eruption in Tonga. Well, I still haven't seen that really injected a lot into the stratosphere. So I don't think that there's any kind of huge impacts from Tonga coming in the extended. I could be wrong with that. I have not looked into it that much, but I heard that there was not much particulate ejected into the stratosphere, which it would take to, create, like Mount Pinatubo launched a lot of particulate into the stratosphere, and that lowered the Earth's temperature like 1 degree Fahrenheit for like 2 years, which is a huge amount of energy that it blocked. Can you explain the correlation with weather like the PNA, NAO, and the MJO? Yeah, like the MJO. So if you're looking out here, tropical disturbances will tend to set up shop, and then they'll move off to the east over a period of time. And then there's different phases. It's called a Madden-Julian oscillation, and there's like 8 phases. And when we get into certain phases, the tropical development moves east. And in certain phases, that affects our weather downstream into North America. And that does correlate with La Nina, for example. Like during El Nino year or La Nina years, it tends to be a bit warmer here in Southeast Asia, which you can kind of see here. You get a stronger trade wind here that helps with the upwelling off the coast of South America there, and it brings warmer water out to Southeast Asia. And you tend to get a more favorable phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation when it does move through. And then you create a stronger jet essentially off of Asia. And then as that jet, that strong jet can only last for a certain amount of time. Usually the boundary between colder Siberia and the warmer water over here in Southeast Asia. And that jet extends out here and then eventually weakens and starts to form ridging here, and then allows for a northwest or a north flow into the western portions of North America. Yeah, I think the snow. Yeah, I should be clear about the Snoqualmie Pass thing. That is in the future. That is still decades to come. That's not going to be something that you're just going to notice next year. It's going to be a very slow transition. Some years are going to be worse than others, and some years we're still going to get big snow dumps up there. Even 80 years from now up in Snoqualmie Pass, some years are still going to be quite snowy. Definitely. It's just going to be a gradual decline to where some of our worst years, you might end up with very little snow up there, maybe, in the 80 to 100 year period. So not something we have to worry about directly, but our children and grandchildren potentially. Cascade Concrete is Snoqualmie Pass. Yeah, man, it's a low pass, and we get a lot of rain up there, and it really packs that snowpack with moisture, and then it freezes up, and it's just like a big sheet of ice sometimes. So you got to get up there right after a good snowfall. Amy Hunter says, are we going to get another storm in Washington? Eventually, at some point this year, we will. The snow lovers hope it'll be snow. And, there's a chance this system or this pattern change could lead to some windstorms and not snowstorms. So, it's not just a sure thing that Arctic air is coming our way. Yeah, we are above average right now, snowpack. I think 120%, somewhere around there, I believe. Yeah, Roland Connor says, must be frustrating to see models changing every 12 hours like the European. Well, so the European model will go through these changes. Like we saw the lobe just came out and just kisses us a bit and throws us cold air kind of here, and this ridge is here versus its earlier run. Let's look at the earlier one again. We looked at this a little bit earlier here too. So if we check this out, notice how, we'll back up a little bit more. You can see the polar vortex here. The ridge is further west. So this is so far out that this is going to change a lot. So this is just the name of the game right now. This is still, 200 hours out. So this is going to change a lot, but the signal has consistently been there with the lobe, with the polar lobe, I'll call it, ejecting some cold air out towards Pacific Northwest. But the position of the ridge has been kind of flip-flopping back and forth, and that's going to continue to happen probably up until 150 hours. So probably another 2 full days at least, and we're going to have these big changes going on. And then probably the next 4 days, we're going to have these, it's still going to be flip-flopping around until what, until probably 4 days from now. Then we'll probably start to see some more consistency to the pattern as we go on. Public Domain says, how is Alpental? Yeah, Alpental's still over there. I go up there sometimes when it's snowing. Yeah, Snoqualmie Pass is a pretty low pass. Alpental's a bit higher. Alpental's on the north side of I-90 there. And it is a bit higher. The snow is, it's a little bit better. I guess where the ski lifts go up, it seems like it's a bit higher, maybe a few hundred feet. Rob Christensen says, was the winter of 1950 a La Nina year for the Pacific Northwest? And it was indeed, yes. In fact, we can look that up too. And I believe, is this the one that we can get to? No. I'm drawing a blank here on this one too. We'll do. So here we go. Let's look at so we can go back here and see every La Nina all the way back to every La Nina and El Nino back to 1950 here. And as you can see now, we're in the second dip of this La Nina here coming into 2022. And you can see our big Godzilla El Nino 2016 and a really big one there in 1998. And then you can see 1950 here. We were in a big La Nina that year. This winter is similar to 1985 winter in the United States. Yeah, 1955. Yeah, Wayne SR. That was our most extreme early Arctic outbreak ever in Western Washington. That was an extreme storm. That was, I think, November, I want to say 11th. I mean, just SeaTac got down to 6 degrees. I think on the 15th it was, somewhere around there. But yes, a very extreme storm. And you can see we were full on in a powerful La Nina then. Oh yeah, Protob user says, was a cyclone trying to form in the Eastern Pacific? Yes, it was. And it's still, you can still see the remnant, you know, the momentum of its spin here. Let's play this. Let's put it into, can you see it on mid-level? You can't even see it anymore on mid-level. How about lower level? Not really. You can see it here, and you can see it in the infrared a bit here. See it spinning right there? It's got no deep convection with it. There's probably some gusty winds on the north side, 30 miles an hour or something, but yeah, it's got no chance. The sea surface temperatures just aren't quite warm enough, really, and this front would just tear it apart anyway. So that is not usual for this time of year. I mean, this is something you usually see in summer. "1964 flooding has a strong signal," Scrub J says. 1964, where was that flooding? Yeah, the 98, 99 was a strong La Nina, and we got a little bit of snow down low, but nothing to write home about. You can see we were in a triple La Nina there. We were 98, 99, 99, 2000, 2000, 2001, and we really didn't get, we had a couple decent lowland snows, but I mean, it was like, you know, there was a couple 3-inch snowfalls or whatnot, but there was no great winter there during the triple dip La Nina we had there around the year 2000. 1964 along the northwest coast in Northern California. I am not familiar with that flooding event, but 1964, let's look at it. You can see we're going from a strong El Nino into La Nina at that point. So if that was the winter of 63, 64, I mean, that would make sense. Sometimes El Nino years can be pretty drastic flood makers in California. Oh, that's right. Oh, no, I have heard of that. Scrub Jay. That just, yeah, that jarred my memory. 1964, peak heights of rivers in Northern California. Yes, I remember actually seeing that in some places. We took a trip down there a couple of years ago, and we drove down through there, and that rings a bell. Jonathan Pulley just got done with first part of the Storm Chasing Summit in Oklahoma. Really cool experience so far. Yes, I'm gonna make a plan to go to that next year. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I've just never done it. I spend a lot of time out there in April, May, and June, and even July, and sometimes August. But I'm going to go next year. I'll plan ahead. And Brian Rock, hello. How's it going? So yeah, as we looked earlier, his 8 to 14 day forecast. Yeah, Mark Bass, Reed Timmer. Yeah, I know him. We're kind of friends. I've chased with him a couple times. We hang out before the chases, throw the football around, talk about the weather. He's a good guy. He's a fun guy. He is hardcore. He chases year round. That's how he makes his living. Yeah, in fact, I'm doing a storm chase culmination video, and I have a little clip of him driving up next to me and talking to me, and I'm going to throw that in the video there. Reed Timmer. Debbie Nelson says 74, 75 flooded the whole trestle from Everett to Lake Stevens. Yeah, we've had some really good flooding events in the Pacific Northwest. And that's, like Cliff Mass says, that's been a real, that causes the most damage and the most deaths too. Yeah, Reed didn't go to the presentation, huh? I think he goes there some years. Some years he speaks there, doesn't he? So yeah, I wonder why the stagnation advisory is not showing up here. It's showing up for Portland. So it looks like the 0Z GFS is running. Why don't we check out that one together? How far out are we here? No change in the ridge. That ridge is going to be, yeah, we're going to have to go through that one first. So we're only 102 hours out right now. Sometimes I like to play along like this. I'll put out, well, I'll go step by step to see if there's many changes. And as of 102 hours, you'll see the heights are a little bit lower on this new run here. And there's no telling what that means at this point, really. But you can see pretty good consistency. That big troughing on the East Coast showing up well. Heights a little bit higher than what they were showing on the 18Z run, but same with the Great Lakes too. Debbie Nelson, I know who Ryan Hall is. I have not actually met him yet, though. I've seen his show on YouTube too. Was there any, Nathan Wolf asked, was there any year where we had multiple destructive landslides in the Pacific Northwest? I mean, we've had local landslides like in the Seattle area, some of the more hilly neighborhoods. We had the Oslo mudslide, was that 2014? I don't know that we've had multiple destructive ones. Somebody might correct me on that. I'm not a landslide expert. So Mayan S says, Seattle forecast discussion calling for it. So let's go ahead and look at that. It's got it right here. I mean, Seattle air stagnation outlook. It just doesn't have it actually highlighted on the map yet. Maybe somebody will get on that here. No flooding, light winds, dry, but then you pay for it in the air stagnation. That's too bad. Maybe the winds will come in a little bit stronger. We'll get a couple days it'll break out and we get some sunshine in the late morning or afternoon. Coastal Amtrak slides. Yeah, you hear about that sometimes on those coastal routes. Yeah, Debbie Nelson says, at least we don't have fires going now. Ooh, yeah, that would be a bad thing. If you got fires in January, it would be a long summer. May and S asks, will Seattle see the sun tomorrow? Let's look at that. Let's look at the... So this was the 18Z. This is looking at visibility. Let's zoom all the way in Washington State here so we can get a better look at the fog. So this is going into tomorrow morning. Look at the dense fog over Seattle here. You can see fog pretty much all throughout the Puget Sound. The really dense stuff almost right over SeaTac there. And you can see it burn off a bit. This is about 11. There's noon. It looks like, I mean, it might be hazy and a little bit moist out there, but it looks pretty good tomorrow afternoon. It looks like there should be some sun breaks. And you see it kind of start to build back in once the sun goes down. Some dense fog. You know what? Kirkland, Monroe, up towards Everett there, and then it settles through the entire Puget Sound. 8 a.m. on Sunday morning looks pretty foggy. And not much of a breakout for areas, some areas on Sunday, so that's not good. And then as we go into Monday morning, look at Eastern Washington, man. If you guys are headed over there, look at that Monday morning. That is a big swath of dense fog. Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, all fogged in Monday morning. Yeah, so it looks like things are going to get pretty stagnant. Is a ridge directly over the Pacific Northwest going to retrograde back towards the Aleutians or break down a new ridge over Alaska and form? Sean O, thanks for supporting the page. How often is fog around airplanes? Well, now at airports, there's things like Category 3 approaches where planes can land in really low visibility. I mean, you're talking 400 feet, sometimes 300 feet of visibility is all you need to land these planes. So it's not like it was back in the day. It's, you've got these great computer guidance in the cockpit, and you can land at very low visibilities and take off in very low visibilities. So let's take a look at that ridge. So Rob Christensen asked a question about this, and so you can see this is the ridge going on now. And then the next one kind of develops in its place. And there's another more transient ridge behind that that dissipates. And then you see the stronger ridging develop here. So this is a new ridge. It's not going to be one that retrogrades. So it's a brand new ridge. Good day fishing in the sun on the lake this afternoon south of Whidbey. Sounds like fun. Yeah, Simone Schultz says, my bulbs are coming up already out here in Olympic Peninsula, and some of our trees in the backyards have pink flowers on them already. And I think Mother Nature has fallen for the little bit of fool's gold we got going on here, the warmer temperatures. It thinks that winter is over, apparently. Aaron Green, ILS landing. Yeah, it's there. If you guys want to look something up fun, look at Category 3 approach for like a Boeing or an Airbus aircraft. Amazing technology now, really safe stuff. Sean O asked about the 5G. No, we're all good at the airport right now. I think they totally postponed it until summertime where they're going to turn it on fully. But everything is good. There's no delays expected, no flight cancellations, nothing like that. The 5G is not an issue right now. Yeah, if the channel gets bigger, Sid asked we should do a Pacific Northwest Storm Chasers meet and greet sometime. Yeah, I'd like to do that. We could probably do it when things calm down a bit, or maybe we can even during like a winter storm or something. That would really get everybody together. Yeah, hopefully the 5G and the airlines works out. I think that it'll work out. They can usually find good agreements, and they'll probably just test how 5G operates on the systems. And plus there's new technology being installed in the aircraft that will work with the 5G. So they'll figure out something, and it'll work out. So this is the 0Z run. This is the brand new GFS rolling in here. So let's watch it together. This is on the left, you have tonight's run, and you have about the noon or the 10 a.m. run on the right. So you can see on this one, this ridge is a little bit more connected on this latest run here, and the heights are a little bit lower out here. So we'll see what that means as the run continues on. Yeah, I'm excited for the pattern change too. The ridge has just started and I'm already tired of it, and it's really not even been one day yet. So I like the active weather. I like getting wind in here. I like the air to be clean. I like getting some snowfall. I like getting a thunderstorm. Is the Weather Channel a good app to use? It can be. I mean, if you're just looking for general information, you're not going to get detailed stuff. And I wouldn't be looking at it more than a day out. It's better to like come read the National Weather Service or come watch my videos if you want to get like up-to-date information. Yeah, I need another hype train video. Those take a few hours to build, so I need to like once this gets more established and I'm confident that we are going to get a certain weather feature, then I will do a hype video for sure. Ridge is at least good for stargazing. Yeah, especially if you get up on some terrain. If you get up in the mountains a bit, away from the city lights, you're going to be above the inversion too. You'll be out of the fog. And you could get some amazing viewing here in the next week. Newcastle weather is here for the hype. Yep, it's all about hype. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking out into the extended and trying to predict what's coming and getting excited about it. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you understand that each individual weather model is going to flip back and forth, and it's like a roller coaster ride until you get closer to the event, and then you get higher confidence. And then you can, you know, and sometimes these snow events are not going to materialize. And not every one of these that we go over is going to materialize. You know, we've had a good run the last few years, but sometimes it's going to seem like we have snow coming up in the 10-day period, and it's just not going to happen. Scrub J says rain in Olympia. Is there? Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, you don't want to, I always put fantasy when it's far out there on my tweets, for example. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting excited about the future forecast. It doesn't hurt anybody as long as you're not making business plans and wasting money or something like that, or your business is counting on it and you're making huge decisions based on a 10-day forecast or a 14-day forecast. Then you probably need to hire a meteorologist, because you can't get hung up on forecasts 2 weeks out. It's just something to be entertained by right now. Yeah, I mean, you can clickbait. Some of the, there's a lot of people on Twitter that are just pure clickbait. Some of the worst ones that are on Facebook. If there's I can't even remember the name of the page because I try to block it out, but the ultimate clickbook sites are on Facebook. It just, some just outrageous, completely made up stuff. So I'm going to check something really quick here. Yeah, so La Nina years tend to be really cool as far as when you go into the new year all the way into March and April too. So that's another thing. We're probably going to be cooler than normal as we go into early spring at least. So how far are we out now? We're at 135 hours. Man, what a powerful ridge, and it's kind of redevelops there early next week and just kind of hanging over us. Whew. See, this is a little interesting here. It looks like at 135 hours here, we have a little bit more of a height fall through eastern Alaska here versus the 18Z run. And that might be better for getting this ridge. Maybe this ridge will retrograde a bit more. This ridge looks a little bit stronger on this evening's run versus this morning's here. But we'll see how that plays out. We'll update that in a bit. Scrub J says you're losing the scream. Pacific Northwest weather lover, subscribe. Thanks for subscribing. Ionospheric heater in Jim Creek, Washington. I have no idea what an ionospheric heater is. Anybody know what that is? Somebody said they're losing the live stream. Is it still going? No, it looks like I'm still getting chat going across here. Any Canadian weather forecast? Well, you're going to be more likely to get cold air than Washington probably, or Oregon, but it's still far out. There's no specific forecast yet. Pacific Northwest Weather Lever says, is there a stagnant air advisory, and why? That's because we're going to have really light winds coming up here. Let me show you this. This is the 18Z European here. For example, look at Seattle and Portland and Vancouver, BC, and Eastern Washington. It's just white. There's just no wind. Very light offshore wind, which is classic fog formation time. And we're into Monday now, Tuesday. So you can see Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it looks like we're going to be in prime fog formation due to the light winds. And those winds have a hard time scouring out those inversions. And that's why you get stagnant air. You know, we've got a bunch of cars running. You've got people burning wood in fireplaces, or, you know, factories going, and we're pumping our mess into the air and it's not being moved around. So it's going to get stagnant. And yeah, pollution levels are going to they're going to raise. It's not going to be as bad as wildfire smoke. Pacific Northwest Weather Lever asks, is it going to be like wildfire smoke? It's going to be less bad. It's just more of what we're putting into our air in our area now. Cars, factories, wood fire smoke from homes. Firefly, how many convergent zones are on the West Coast? Well, the main one is the Olympic Mountains. That's the most predominant one. There's also a convergent zone that wraps around Vancouver Island here. So you get winds that'll come out of the northwest and out of the southwest here, and they'll converge in areas that meet over the San Juans, down towards Whidbey Island through the northern Puget Sound, or even down towards Seattle sometimes. A Vancouver Island convergent zone will form. I have not been cutting out at all. Must have been someone on the other end. Yeah, I'm not wireless or anything. I got a direct Cat 6 cable to my modem. I got this setup going good, so I should not have any problems with any bandwidth. Did we get a good snow in February 2017? I remember watching the Super Bowl. Well, I might have my climatic data center here. Let's see if I do. It might be on my, no, there it is. So let's look at February 2017. So there's 2017 for Seattle. Let's see what we can infer from this. Yeah, I mean, we had 4 inches of snow on the ground there, 2017. Look at that. We had 5.1 inches of snow on the 6th. We had 2 inches on the 5th, so 7.1 inches in a 2-day period there for SeaTac. And temperatures below freezing for some of the portions of the time. Then we had a thunderstorm on the 9th, and we had a little bit more snow at the end of the month. But yeah, we had a pretty good snowfall there for the 5th and 6th. Yeah, February 2019 was epic. That was a great snowstorm. Jeremy Williams says, looking like decent odds of dry cold. That's what the last model runs were kind of hinting at, kind of a dry air Arctic intrusion, more from the center of the continent versus we need that cold air to move down the coast and bring some, you know, it needs a little overwater trajectory to bring that moisture back in over us. So yeah, that's what it looked like this last run. We'll see if that changes again, because the run before that was a little bit different still. So I'm going to close that out now. Let's go back to the GFS here. Let's update that. We're out to hour 189. That's a bit better. So let's go ahead and turn that off. So now this ridge looks like it's not as connected here. Yeah, you can see the differences already occurring here. We've got, we had some height falls closer to the west coast here. They're further away. Same there. Interesting. It's interesting how this ridging has been showing up, stretching so far to the east. I don't know if a very unusual pattern. Is the red sky from volcano? I don't know. There might be some particulate in the atmosphere that will enhance sunsets in certain areas. Desert Mantis says, sorry I'm late. Well, no need to apologize. Desert dust from China. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things can contribute to nice sunsets. You can get dust storms, thousands of miles away, or volcanic eruptions, wildfires, all kinds of stuff can enhance sunsets. February 2017 snowstorm. I'm having a hard time remembering that one. I'm sure I have pictures of it. I don't recall exactly how well it was forecast. Where does the data feed that feeds the GFS come from? That's a global. That's basically, it's run by the National Weather Service. It's run by the United States National Weather Service. Public domain says wildfire smoke makes a great sun filter. Yes, it does. As long as there's not too much of it. You need it like nice and scattered and maybe 1,000 miles away. Hour 2:01 here. So this one's already looking a little bit more favorable than this morning's 18Z here. You can see this polar lobe is almost trying to connect here with this height fall. Maybe we should switch to let's go to Northern Hemisphere so we can actually see the entire planet a little bit better. And now we'll compare these. We're comparing tonight's GFS run coming in currently with this morning's. And yeah, I definitely like the look of tonight's run already better. You can see how this ridge extends all the way down into Canada here versus on this one, the ridge is much less pronounced and you've got a better polar lobe here. And this ridge will tend to throw colder air down the east side of that ridge towards Pacific Northwest better, is my assumption here coming up in the next. We'll see here what the GFS shows, but that ridge is more favorable on tonight's run versus this morning's. When models differ, are they using different data and why? Yeah, each run will actually take some of the data from the previous run, and then it uses all the information, all the observations that it gathers and puts those together. So it's not just taking brand new data and making a completely different forecast. It's taking some of the previous forecast also. So there's just not these huge, wild, bizarre swings between like the 18Z GFS and the next one at 00Z. DVM1 says side-by-side model run is great. Yeah, I like watching it like this. I love watching these runs come in. I'll look over step by step and kind of look and see what's more favorable and see how things are trending. And you can see even at 200 hours out here, generally there's a lot of these 500 millibar heights are pretty similar still too. You can still see the similarities to the previous run in there. Duval is lowland. Yes, Duval is lowland. Yeah, that dry spell last summer, I mean, that was pretty crazy. That was a little too much for me. I was dying in my house. It was very intense. So what are we out to? Hour 201 here still? Okay. You can, so PB raining. The Weather Bell model viewer is very cool. I'm sure it's not inexpensive. What would you recommend for a home weather hobbyist? I would do Pivotal Weather, or you can do College of DuPage. Let's do this. Let's go models. I have Pivotal Weather right here. So Pivotal Weather site looks like this. And then we'll go to College of DuPage. Looks like this. And you punch in GFS. Select a region. And you can select different things. So as we go on into the GFS there, you can see the big ridging starting up over Alaska there. But yeah, Pivotal Weather and College DuPage are good free sites. I have the commercial version of Weather Bell, so it allows me to show it on my page, for example. So look at that ridge over us. It's pretty impressive. That is pretty much the strongest, most unusual ridge on the planet, really. There's a pretty strong one there over the UK there too. Ours hangs out. Oh, this hangs out pretty good too. They've got a pretty good ridge going on over the North Atlantic there too. But then you see that ridge really building back over Alaska, and there's some similarities. This ridging is what keeps showing up in the model runs, and that's what's got me kind of a little bit excited about the extended. If we get that ridging out there, that's at least a start. That can start to direct colder air into our area. And you'll notice how the ridge is further west on this one. That's good. Here's the morning run, and here's this evening's run or afternoon's run, and that's a little bit further west, which is good. Yeah, the East Coast blob looks a bit smaller. Yes, that's good observation there. And you can see more of that polar lobe is evident here over the Northern Territories area. I forget what those islands are called there near the Arctic Ocean. Somebody could probably chime in and knows right now. Is Carnation Western Washington lowlands? Yes, it is. Yeah, so this is the 30th here, and you can see that system out over the Pacific there on the south side of that big Alaskan ridge. That would probably be bringing us some precip. So we might be going 8-9 days without rainfall. So Nathan Wolf says Portland shut down the max transit lines because the temperature exceeded the power line max service temperature. The line started to drop. It was insane. Wow. And Sid says Fraser River outflow can give massive snowfalls to the east side of Vancouver Island and Port Angeles Squim. Yes, that is where you get. This Fraser River Valley is here. It's a cold air conduit located in British Columbia here, and we get strong outflow winds through it, and we get Arctic air up into British Columbia. And as that air moves across the relatively warm Puget Sound, it'll pick up moisture there and becomes slightly unstable, and then slams into the Olympics over here by Port Angeles and can create some pretty heavy snowfall totals there and even over towards Vancouver Island. Pacific Northwest. Yeah, if Pacific Northwest Weather Lover, you're asking about being a mod. Yeah, send me a direct message at Seattle Weather Guy on Twitter. Hopefully you're following me there. Go to there and send me a direct message, and I'll set up some weather mods. I need to do that also because there's a lot of people chiming in here, and I don't want the conversation to get. There was a couple people on the volcano chat that were kind of rude, and like spamming the chat with a bunch of messages, so I could use a moderator or two. Does it look like the ridge could retrograde to the west the first part of February and giving it? That's what we're looking for. Arctic Archipelago Islands off North Canada. Thank you, Roland. All right, so let's take a look at this next here. No more updates there to hour 2:16. So looking a little bit better. There's a little bit more cold air up over the region here, and you can notice the system is closer. So this looks like we'd end this dry streak a little bit sooner here on this latest run. Well, if you want to be a moderator, direct message me on Twitter. It's not hard to follow me. Yeah, public domain mentions that OSO slide, clear cutting above the slide. Yeah, that was a tragic situation there. So we're waiting for this to update. Are we getting any updates here? What's going on? Looks like did they pause the updates here? They're just not coming out yet. We'll be patient. Here we are at hour 2:16. We'll just wait for it. Yeah, Debbie Nelson, glad you're enjoying it. I liked when you recently looked at the high-level troposphere model. Does that show anything interesting now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting way to take a look at what is going on. And I assume you mean this one. Let's look at one that's a little bit more. A little bit higher resolution on the GFS operational run here. So you can see kind of a reflection of the polar vortex there. And let's see, there's a big storm system looming for the east coast here on the GFS, I believe. Let's see what that looks like. There it goes up the east coast. But this is the tropopause pressure. This blue is showing the lower sections of the tropopause here, which usually means lower heights, colder air. And you can see, let's back all the way up. So you can see our big ridging here. That's a lot of warm air. You know, we've got a lot of, it's a big high pressure here. And you can kind of see this cutoff low that's sliding down here. And this kind of gets cut off out here, and the jet stream leaves it behind. And then the jet stream picks it back up, but by that time it modifies quite a bit. But you can see like this reflection of the polar vortex here. And you can see our system out here on the 30th right there, which might bring us some precipitation and end our dry spell there. And you can see now these polar vortex, or these polar lobes, are moving closer to the Pacific Northwest here too. This big ridging out over Alaska allows some of these to steer closer to our region here. And that's what we're looking for, with the possibility of some snow into early February. But it's still too far out to be looking at details. Man, look at this warm air just come above this system. Wow. That's an impressive influx of warm air all the way up to Greenland, Iceland there. We can look at that from the northern hemisphere and get, yeah, look at that. Oh, that's an impressive storm. That is really taking a lot of heat and distributing it poleward. I wonder if that's what's going to cause that polar vortex split out there. We could actually look at that too. Let's look at 10 millibar height. This is actually what I was looking at earlier. So this is the 0Z. This is a look at the upper levels of the polar vortex here. or just a reflection of the polar vortex, not necessarily the upper levels. And we're not out far enough to see the split yet. Some of this was showing a split earlier in earlier runs, one over Western North America and one over Russia. Okay, let's see what the chat here is. Yeah, there's been some impact on long-term drought. Here, let's look at that drought monitor real quick here. Eastern Washington was really bad this year. And you can see it's been relieved of it some. They're down to severe drought. There's still some extreme there over some of the Yakima Valley. Exceptional drought is gone from Eastern Washington, though, so that's good. I mean, the dust devil season was exceptional this year, and the ground was really dry. And I'm not an expert on how aquifers work or, what it takes to replenish those. We have gotten some precipitation, though, and it has relieved a lot of those areas. And you can see Western Washington completely absolved of any drought conditions. Enderglow, new to the channel. Welcome. Yeah, dust devils are amazing. I love them. It's very fun going out there and spending a day chasing dust devils. I mean, they pop up all over the place. Each one looks a little bit different. Some of them are really strong. Some of them are weak and fast. Some of them are really tall. It depends on what day you're out there too, what the conditions are. It's a challenging forecast. It's really fun. Where did you get the drought monitor? You can go on just Google and just Google US drought monitor. Yeah, that's a good question too. What is the definition of drought? Because I don't know the exact definition of it. They have, let's see. I know they've got, so they have it somewhere here where they mention the exact, as in what these droughts mean, but let's see if somebody else can find that and send that to me here. So about climate outlooks. How's the snowpack? Snowpack is above average across the Cascades and most of the mountains. 120%, I believe, average. Yeah, drought on the west side of the Pacific Northwest doesn't make much sense, but the eastern portions of the state get really hammered by drought conditions. It was a really hard season last summer for Eastern Washington and Oregon. Extreme heat is worse than extreme cold. I mean, if you're looking as far as, I guess it depends on what you're looking at, because extreme heat, of course, can bring extreme drought. Lack of water is just a big killer. If you're cold, you can kind of hunker down and make it through the cold stretch, and it's not, it's not taking away your water supply. Am I allowed to be here even though I'm a gaming channel? I don't know. Don't mean to interrupt, but check out 850 temps into February 1st and the heights. Is that on the GFS, the recent GFS, Vlad? So here's a recent GFS. We'll just let this run out. I'm not sure if Vlad mentioned the 850 millibar temperatures into February 1st. Now you can see the cold air kind of building up over British Columbia, the Yukon Northwest Territories here in the big ridging out here over Alaska, and the system that's going to end our dry streak out here. So he says yes. So I'm only out to hour 234 right now. I guess this is why I need a channel moderator. This Enderglow guy, I don't know. He seems like he's bored. Yeah, I guess I could get a moderator in here. You could just block him. Okay, so let's let's duplicate this map, and I'll have this one, and I'll do this one with the heights. So let's just run it out to hour 234 and see what this looks like. There goes our Alaska Ridge starting to build. So this is something I look for here too. And now in future runs, I'll watch this ridge building out over the Aleutians here to see where it builds, just how strong it gets. And you can see it kind of retrograde a bit. It's over Western Alaska here. Very strong, allows that system to bring us some precip probably on the 30th there. And then you notice, yeah, I like that better. You can see this polar lobe here, this polar vortex. Look at it. It's reaching out towards places of BC here, hour 264. So this is a good run. And look at this ridge is far west, far north and west. This would allow cold air to get back over the Pacific Northwest compared to the 18Z. See how much this changed here? This reaches out very far out towards the northern portions of British Columbia, and the ridge is much farther east here versus much farther west in this run. So this is what I'm talking about. These models are going to be changing quite a bit. But the thing that gets me excited about potential for the pattern change back to cold is this ridge out here that is showing up on all model runs. The models seem to have a good handle on that. We just don't know the position of the ridge and just how much cold air is going to get into the region here, what kind of trajectory it's going to take off the water, because we need that cold air to come off the continent a little bit and then back into the Pacific Northwest. If you have this here and you shoot cold air over the region, you know, it's coming over the mountains and it's not really getting an overwater trajectory. It could just be, you know, some cold air getting into the region, but no moisture with it. It would be a dry air intrusion. Back to the chat here. Yeah, last summer was the hottest. That heat stretch was just, hopefully that was once in a lifetime. Very quiet next 7 days. What will you report on? Ask Roland Connor. I will report on exactly what you're seeing right here, because I love looking 10 days out and trying to break down if we're going to get a pattern change towards cold. I love watching the ridge develop off the coast. I love watching the polar vortex and these polar lobes move around and to see how this plays out. If you guys remember at the end of the last cold streak, we were wondering if we were going to continue being cold, and we didn't have this ridge out here, but we had cold air built up over British Columbia. The reason why that cold air did not get down into Western Washington was because we had no ridging out here. This ridge is moving like this, and that brings cold air down with it. If there's no ridge out there, and it doesn't matter where the cold air is, because we're going to get some kind of onshore flow. TGGB9 says your channel is growing like a weed. Yeah, thanks. I hope you guys are enjoying the channel. I mean, I'm glad of being a part of the weather community here. I just want to be a part of it, and I just want to try to explain things to the layperson. Yeah, Roland Connor, that's a good point. You should document what models show this far out and record what really happens. That's kind of what I do on Twitter. When I make those posts, I kind of do it to see to look back on it later and see what happens. And if you guys know, it snowed on December 26th in Seattle. And I first mentioned that cold snap, I think it was 16 days prior, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was around December 9th, actually. It might have been 17 days. 17 days. That's an incredible lead time. And that's not just by accident. You know, you can kind of see these signals, and when they're strong enough, you can kind of start getting excited about some of the patterns showing up. But again, we don't know how this is going to play out. To be fair, this could easily be, like we said, a dry air cold intrusion, or this ridge could end up being even farther out or way farther north. And maybe this will end up coming further out off of Alaska, and the trajectory will be too far, and we'll get cyclogenesis, and we'll have cold rain, but snow in the mountains. You never know how this is going to play out. Take a look at our 282 temperature anomaly. All right, let's load this up. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, Vlad brings up a good point. You guys, look at this Arctic air just flowing off the continent here. This is extremely cold and uniquely cold air for British Columbia. This is Western Canada here. There's Western Washington, Oregon, California, British Columbia, Alaska, the Yukon, Northwest Territories. So the signal is strong with the GFS. This run is much better than this morning's run, for sure, if you like snow. Yeah, I hope that I think that June's heat wave is a very rare event. I mean, like Cliff Mass was saying, it's probably on the order of once every few hundred years to see something like that. I don't know if that changes and how much with climate change, but I'm hoping that that's the last time I see something that hot in my lifetime. What about models showing further south and potential for next Pineapple Express? Well, yeah, there was... Some of the ensemble runs had some interesting atmospheric river patterns to them, but it was pretty rare. Yeah, I mean, Cliff Mass, he does a blog. He doesn't put out daily forecasts or anything, but his forecasts are usually pretty strong. Will this cold snap be as cold as the one in December? Well, probably not, but it doesn't take us, we don't need to get that cold to get significant snowfall or to get very active weather around here. December was, we had 5 out of 6 days in Seattle did not get above freezing. That's pretty darn rare. And we don't need to get that cold. February 2019 didn't get that cold. February 2021, we didn't get that cold. And we got significant snowfalls. So we could easily get as cold as February 2019 or 2021 in this upcoming event. But again, like I said, we're far out and we're still in fantasy land, but the signal is there. The models are showing the ridging there. We just have to determine over the next 2, 4, 5, 6 days and see how that ridging develops. And we'll come to a pattern and the models will start coming into agreement in 4+ days, and we'll be able to tell what's on, what's in our future. Yeah, Pacific Northwest Weather Lover. Like I said, DM me on my Twitter page or message me on the YouTube page, and I can make people who want to be moderators for the chat, so I can do that. Yeah, February 2021 was a very nice snowfall. I mean, what did we have? We had was it 11 inches we had at SeaTac? It was incredible snowfall. Okay, let's update this one. And we're out to hour 300 now. This is interesting looking here. So we talked about that. They were just further west over Alaska. And you see these lobes moving down here. These are going a little bit more than I want. Okay, so here we go. So we were about here last time. You can see this polar vortex lobe moving out over British Columbia here, and the ridging is there. And look at this. We've got kind of a Pacific system riding up underneath this too. So this was what some of the GFS was hinting at shortly. Some colder air getting into the region with Pacific moisture available, which, that can... I don't want to get people too excited, but when you get Pacific moisture riding up into Arctic air, that's when we get our really big snowfall events. But again, we're way far out. This is going to change. We're going to come back here in the morning, and it's going to look a little bit different in the morning. So these are just we're just trying to determine. It's good that this ridge is retrograded. That's all I'm taking away from tonight. You can see the ridge is over Alaska here and it's further west there. That's a good thing. We don't want that ridge to continue to trend further towards Pacific Northwest if we want cold air in here. Hi, Michael. Are you giving me some snow? Yeah, I mean, there's the potential for snow come up early February. And as we know, it's that time of year, February. 2 out of the last 3 years, we've had decent snowfalls in February. Can I make you a moderator right now? Add moderator. I can. Okay. All right. Let's see if you can prove your worth as being a moderator on the live stream here. If you see anybody spamming the chat with live stream messages. Okay, so let's go over the 850 millibar temperatures. If you guys don't know, 850 millibars is 5,000 feet. And we are out to hour 306 now. But look at, I mean, this is the same signal as December with this Arctic air. Look, I mean, we're British Columbia. I don't know what somebody did, but like during the summer, and now this would be the second round this winter. You're breaking the chart here. I mean, look at the chart only goes to -20, and you've got plenty of -20 pink there. And you can see the abnormal cold here in Western North America would be by far the most abnormally cold area on the planet, really. Yeah, that's fine. You don't have to always be here. Just help out with people who are trying to spam the page when you are here. Yeah, -31.4. That's -31.4 below average. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 850 millibar temperature. And you can see bitter cold air. I mean, look at the North Pole. It's colder than the North Pole here over British Columbia on this 300-hour run here on the GFS. And extremely cold air over North Canada here, Hudson Bay. So let's back this up. And let's go to where we are now. So you'll notice now there's some pretty warm air here. The freezing line is where this white starts and the red begins. And if we put that into motion there, you can see that cold air really kind of looping around here. It looks like the polar lobe is out there on the East Coast, and then it starts to build down a bit. And now there it comes for British Columbia. Boom, there later on. That's February 2nd now. It really starting to show up there. So yeah, I mean, the GFS is sticking with it. It'll be interesting to see what the European shows tonight. I'll probably make a post on Twitter about that at some point. The European model won't even start running here for about another hour. Yeah, Alaska will be warmer than normal. Patrick B says Alaska, with this huge monster ridge right there, that will make Alaska warmer than normal. Most of it. I mean, Southeast Alaska would stay pretty cold in this kind of a pattern, though. Mark Bass. All right, I won't make you a moderator, Mark. So anybody joining us now, you can see the ridge. This was this morning's run. This is this afternoon's run. This is the global forecast model. Look at that big ridge over the Pacific Northwest. Keeps us free from precipitation all the way until probably next weekend. At least, probably not till Sunday till we see precipitation, the 30th, maybe the 31st even. And then you can see this big ridge retrograding and allowing the polar lobe to come down and pay the British Columbia at least a visit here, and it spreads this air out over. And no matter what, even if we didn't get cold air, we'd get some kind of strong storm development off Pacific Northwest here, because that's a lot of cold air that'd be pouring out over the Aleutian, the Gulf of Alaska there. Yeah, good night, Vlad. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I'm having fun. So as long as it's fun for everybody, then this page will be good. All right, so I guess we saw the run here, and let's see. I think that's about it. I'm gonna do probably another post tonight after the European runs on Twitter, and then I'll do another forecast tomorrow. We'll go over the brand new European run in tomorrow's video, and if the European starts showing more of what the GFS shows here, then our confidence will start to grow little by little as we go into this huge ridge that's going to keep us dry for at least the next 7 days, it looks like. That warming over the North Pole, it's just a temporary feature for the North Pole, but the Arctic is warming a little bit due to climate change. Yeah, thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed that video. I'll have another one out tomorrow morning, and we will go over what the European says tonight, and hopefully it matches up with the GFS. Give us a little more confidence knowing what to expect. So, all right, I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to end the live stream now, and thanks for stopping by, everybody.